So getting more energized, they get released from that bond. They go into a state of gas. It will be not solid, it will be a gas state. Some will be able to depart, but many of these will remain attracted by the gravitational forces to the main metal surface. But meanwhile, they are taking some bigger distance in between. Also in between each other, the distance will increase, they will be more distant. So this is how the nanolayers are forming. It does not matter we use a caustic method or high temperature method. One of the ways to create these nanolayers is just to heat up the metal. You can use the flame of a torch at about 650 centigrades, or you can make grow nanolayers by putting a clean copper plate in an oven, which you can heat it up to 300 up to 700 centigrade somewhere. Or even if you want to grow, for instance, such nanowires on the surface, you just have to keep away the oxygen to not let it to combine with the oxygen. In which case, for instance, you can fill special or electric oven with nitrogen gas. You put in a crucible the metal parts, you fill the crucible with nitrogen and you seal it, and then you heat it up to 600, 650 centigrades and you keep for 8 hours, you will find the growing such nanowires on the surface, which are, for instance, excellent for supercapacitors. Now it's another thing, what will happen with that surface when you bring it out in a different medium, in a different environment. So now in this case, you can use electric current to give more energy, you can use heat, you can use hot caustic or whatever to give more energy to the atoms to let them release from the surface. And now what happens? These will be rearranged in an interesting structure. In our experiment, when we use this liquid caustic, in that case, we have also oxygen in the water. And that oxygen from the water will get its position here. Let's see, for instance, if these are the nano layer of copper atoms. Of course, they are not so regular. This is an idealistic picture. So these will get some bending in between, and also it will appear a gap where oxygen may fit. So we'll get such kind of structure of copper 2 oxide in a nanolayer. I try to give you a short primer about these nanocoatings, because if these are misunderstood later, it will be more difficult.
It's very useful, very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, it's an idealistic picture. In nature, it comes more at random.
Mm. Is there any carbon?
Understand that they are created here, some gaps and holes. So here you get a gap, here you get another gap, and so on. And what's interesting, here you have the electron bond in between. Mm. And now we have learned in chemistry and in physics or in physical chemistry about the levels of the electrons like S, P, and D, and so on. And depending to which is connected to which, we find, for instance, there are so-called SP connections or SP2 connection or SP3 connection. You can look at the hybridization in the Wikipedia, for instance, or SPD and so on. So what's interesting here, it may appear this sp2 formation when we have something like a mesh. So the angle of the bonds, it's about 180 degrees. And if it's 104.5 degrees, or 9.5, I don't remember very well, I'm not very good in maths. So we have an sp3 where you have such a pyramidal structure.
Mm. Yeah, I can't read.
So what Roger told about this diamond detector that can be fooled even with a copper oxide nanolayer, which got the sp3 quality. It's a different crystallization. It depends on the conditions which we apply there. But also, it happens something very interesting. Then you see, we put here inside the bottle, the Coke bottle, we put this liquid, and this creates a condition. So now, first of all, the atoms from the surface are released, and they are reordered in a different way. They will get more loose. So it will be a gas in a nanostate, where from the word GANS comes. And here we apply a millivolt meter time to time, and we observe it's something live there inside. You see a pulsation.
Yeah.
We see that the voltage is increasing, decreasing, changing direction. So actually here you create a plasma environment. And that because of the release of these layers. And these layers, when they are organized, like in this sp2 formation, like a mesh, in that case, you see each atom has its own fields, but in these holes and gaps, you will get the fields here like the fields of ring magnets. Of course, not a ring magnet for iron or for nickel or for cobalt like the usual magnets, but it's a magnetic field for something else, of a different strength in terms of plasma fields. So these nanolayers will become like a field of small ring magnets aligned one near to the other.
Mm.
And you see, copper, it's copper 63, it's copper 65 there. When it goes into a nanolayer, and when you have to know when it becomes black color that we can see it black, they have to be tens of thousands of nanolayers. So such a 30,000, 40,000 nanolayers are needed for that black aspect to appear when it absorbs the light.
Mm.
So you can understand when the thickness of the nanolayers becomes equal to the wavelength of the visible light spectrum of the extreme. In that case, you will have no reflection, all will be absorbed.
Mm.
You can get different colors of nanolayers if you match the wavelength of a certain color, for instance. Unfortunately, I don't have it at hand. I made such a copper cup, which I made it to be nano-coated in a very special way. So I used only potassium hydroxide, and very concentrated one, and it took about 2 months to make it. And there you don't see that puffy black surface, but you see something shiny, like a diamond. It's like lacquered.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's dark, it's black in some spots, it's transparent, but I think it is an sp3 structure there.
Yeah.
Obtain conditions for that crystalline structure. So let's go back to our bubble. So here copper is 63, okay. But I mean a mass number, which determines its relative strength of the fields. But when it gets in a nanostate, in that case it gets looser, the structure is looser, so usually we have about 5% less. So it will be about, let's say, 59, its strength.
Yeah.
And still we have not all nano covered, and still we have the copper. By the way, if we have a piece of zinc, that's usually isotope 65, which is in nature. And what happens here? 59. It is that field strength which is emitted by this nano surface. And the other, if we have some opposite metal, which is 65, usually zinc, but in some cases we have the isotope of copper, which is still present. In that case, we have 65 minus 59, it's 6. And the strength of 6 in plasmatic terms, it's the strength which matches with the number of protons of the carbon.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to match the whole atomic weight, just the weight of the protons. Because if you pull the protons, you pull the rest also, the 6 neutrons, the 6 electrons as well. If you pull somebody by his feet, he will come together with his hands, of course.
Yeah.
Are you explaining here how some sort of transmutations occurring?
Yes, it's a real alchemy here.
Yeah.
So it's to understand the fields and how from the fields we can obtain different materials. But before to go to transmutation, it's just moving the materials. Now the plastic surface here inside, it's also nano-coated because of the same process like with the hydrogen. Here are bonds of carbon and hydrogen mainly. It's a polyethylene terephthalate, a PET plastic, which is important. That's why the Coke bottle has been chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And so in certain conditions, here you will get the attraction for carbon. You will get the fields which attracts the carbon. And of course, from here, the carbon is released from the bottle. And especially not from these sides, but here at the neck. You know, these bottles are manufactured by blowing up heated so-called preform. It's like a vial, it's a tube with a thread. They are heating it up and they are blowing it into a bottle. And the portion which has not been blown, that has a different crystalline structure. And usually from there, some carbon gets released. And there have been such a sample of these copper nails, such so-called parachutes, which have been nano-coated by Mr. Cash, have been submitted to some institutes like the Belgian IMEC for study, and they checked it with Raman spectroscopy and X-ray or infrared spectroscopy and so on. They found very interesting things. They found here in the reports the presence of sp2 and sp3 layers. They found also graphene structures.
So
besides of copper oxide, besides of copper oxide, about 5 to 7% of the layers were covered with graphene, actually, with carbon. And that's why they were wondering how he could do that without using gamma rays, because they knew technology for such thing only with gamma rays, and suddenly they declared him a terrorist, and they suspected him of building up a nuclear bomb in his lab.
But it's pulling it out of the neck of the Coke bottle, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, actually it was pulled out by here, because here you have some of 65, and you have some in nanostate which go down to 59, and let's make attraction for carbon. Now let's go further. So now if you put here a piece of aluminum, what happens? Something very interesting.
Hydrogen.
Of course, they will make native hydrogen. So not molecular, but native atomic hydrogen, which get released there. And because here it's a closed environment, and already the oxygen gets consumed by creating this nanolayer, and no more free oxygen is available in the water. So you will have here the carbon, you will have the hydrogen, and something happens with this hydrogen too. You can get the so-called CH3 bond of hydrogen. And what's more interesting here, that in certain condition, you can create condition with such a simple Coke bottles and some simple chemicals and some pieces of metal. You can create condition to create deuterium, or you can create a tritium condition.
Very interesting.
So if you find that a USB stick with Mr. Cash's patent applications, some were submitted, some were never submitted, but they have been put in public in 2012. Originally, Mr. Cash had shared these only to the governments. But in Taiwan, it happened that some scientists just shared it to public.
Yeah.
So because Mr. Cash gave his promise that he will not divulge his secrets in public, but to the government only, but he just asked the Taiwanese government and scientists if they release to their public there to release it internationally. So that's how it went worldwide.
Okay.
You see millions of downloads on the logs of the servers.
Okay.
You can download those. You can find some copies. Some people put them together, arranged, because they are separate files, just with the abstract, with the claims, with the description, separate the pictures, and some put it and edit it together into entire whole documents. You can find them, and you can see there such illustrations where you see two pipes going from one Coke bottle to another bottle, and from there another going up to the next level. So this is the setup in which it's possible to create the condition for this H3. So you have to understand, Mr. Cash is a nuclear engineer.
Yeah,
I know that. Yeah, it's good.
So he understands well about these forces, and he found, he studied for decades. We worked 30-40 years to find a way how to do these things with inexpensive materials. You see now recently in news, some physicists are so happy that finally they were able to get, let's hope, the proof of Einstein's one idea exposed in 1916, and after 100 years, they hope that they could demonstrate the existence of the so-called gravitational waves by using two Michelson interferometers at a large distance, one to the other, and they observed some abnormalities which were happening at a small interval of time between the two locations. You have to think about the 10 at the minus 21st power of 10 of a second. So 1 trillionth of a second, roughly. And from that little thing, they consider that they could prove in decades of work and a lot of millions of dollars and efforts of hundreds of people, maybe they could give a slight proof of a theory. And you have to understand, it was the LEGO project which started it was initiated in 1972, and with such a huge investments, with high expensive lasers and special optics, and the teams of scientists now just they have a hope which they said it's 90% sure they are not wrong, still they have a 10% escape. Compare that to what Mr. Cash brought with some simple materials which people can replicate in their kitchen, in their home. Even a 5 years old kid in China was able to do a nanocoating.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an excuse to spend money on other things, I think. So, but basically, you're right. They have to justify their existence, so they come up with some sort of strange measurement that tries to justify a theory that's not right.
Yeah, you know, and after some decades, they spend some millions and billions on something they cannot go back.
yeah.
Yes.
They cannot lose their face or something, so they will defend their position. Same thing happens with the environmental engineers.
Yeah.
That there are people who are trained as environmental engineers, and if we will not need them, so they will oppose, of course, because they lose 10 years of their study and their experience and so on. They have to learn again some new things.
Well, thank you for that explanation, Sandor. You're very knowledgeable about it. Are you a physicist yourself?
No. I have only so-called high school.
Okay.
I studied electronics, and of course I wished to become an engineer. But after the high school, I went to the library. I opened the books, because they opened bookstore, not library, sorry, from the bookstore, to see the university manuals for electronics engineers. I was in communication. And when I was looking there, I was amazed. It was less about the main techniques of electric engineering that we had in the high school. It was not more, it was less. Of course, it was put some hard to understand, complicated mathematics on some things, but that's not a way out. You know, my brother also worked in electronics for many years, besides of other technical jobs. And in his country, there was a system of mastership. So you got highly qualified and so on, and after some years you gave an exam and you got a degree of master, not post-university, not postgraduate, but specialist in work. We started just from a high school.
Yeah.
Master of your job. And sometimes it came from the capital city, some young engineer to put it such a special training and exams, the old masters of 40, 50 years age.
Can I?
To teach them. Just a second for this anecdote, please excuse me for that.
Yeah.
And because these old students, old pupils were not listening so much. You know, you are not as disciplined like a 10 years child when you are in your 50s. That's why, as a revenge, the engineer had an idea. He has drawn a circuit, an electronic circuit of an oscillator, a theoretical schematic, and this was on Friday, and told them by Monday everybody shall give a test by telling what kind of waveforms and what kind of waveform is produced by that circuit. He knew that it's very difficult, it takes all the weekend to work on it, and still they will not be able to make it. Okay, the whole team of technicians and masters, they solved the problem in 2 hours. After the hours, after that they went to drink beer in the pub and spend outside in the city the weekend. And on Monday, when they came to the class, the engineer told, who solved it? Everybody. He checked the result. It's impossible. To me, it took 1 week to calculate that. They thought, because you are an engineer, you calculate.
Yes.
We are technicians. We simply built up the circuit in 1 hour, and we measured it with the oscilloscope. So the problem was solved in an empirical way.
Very good story.
And so anyway, this was a story about, I didn't go to university to lose 5 more years there, or even more. For the end, to run with a stock of papers and to defend myself, so and to going to jail for some mistake, and so to deal with people why they are not doing their job. And I like electronics. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, in the 90s, I had an opportunity to work again in electronics, and it was an exam where there were 5 competitors, all engineers with 10 years experience, young ones. I was older. And it was a system for translators with infrared transmission, wireless, you know, like in a conference room. And they needed some technician who is able to troubleshoot anything happens, but also to fix he changes the panel, the module inside, which is a defect. But also in the meanwhile, he has to be able to troubleshoot and fix the plate itself, the electronic board itself, because they don't have so many spares, to be sure, because they are working at Parliament and in such special places. And it was formed by a company by such a retired colonels and other officers in the army. So they had such special customers anyway, like Parliament and others. And one part of the test was showing the schematics of what we have to work with. And our young engineers were looking, sorry, this is built of transistors. So what's the problem? We didn't learn about transistors. So what did you learn about? About integrated circuits. So one integrated circuit is made of hundreds of transistors. If you don't understand one transistor, how can you understand the complexity of it? So you see there is a degradation in the education. So people get paper and that's all. Who wants to know has to learn. Of course, I learned not just in the school. I was a fifth grader when I started to take apart all the radios to solder out the parts and to build such a small radio receptor in a matchbox with earphones and such things. So this is how I learned.
Brilliant.
Okay, sorry for a long speech.
No,
I didn't
no
want
problem.
to your meeting.
I mean, it needs a good, you know, this sort of technology to get things to work well. It needs a whole variety of different skills, doesn't it? And that's why people working on their own trying to build whatever it is quite often don't really succeed, because nobody's got like the whole skill base that's needed to actually achieve it.
Yeah.
Maybe
and with these new technologies, now you see many people are just thinking of leave me alone with this nano and guns. I just want to know how to make the wires, how to put them together. Just doing a copycat job like monkey see, monkey does. They go nowhere. They have to understand about fields which you cannot see, we cannot taste, you cannot touch. It's similar somehow with electronics, where what makes your computer work, it's something you cannot touch, or if you touch it, it will make an interesting effect upon the body. But that's all. So bases are needed. So to understand how the fields work. So what I recommend, you can order these. The Universal Creation of Matters by...
yes, I have that one.
Yeah. Not easy reading. You will spend some time for everyone, but try to teach somebody about what's written there, so you will learn fast.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And the structure of light and the origin of the universe. And he plans to issue more books. Will be a total of 9 books. When he does the last, he will finish his task on this.
I had a discussion a few weeks ago with Oliver about some other aspects of all this, and he pointed out to me some work that Dan Winters has done, and I found that very useful.
Yeah.
That was really useful.
Yeah, he's a very good interpreter of it.
Yeah.
Dan Winter is good in collecting everything he finds interesting and putting them together into a big web page, but I don't know how much he understands of that.
Oh, he's pretty good.
I think he's pretty good. I mean, the whole thing about phase conjugate systems and mirrors.
He didn't convince me. He didn't convince me. It's my opinion. I don't.
Well, but you're an engineer. That's where you have a skill in a certain area, and other people have got skills in other areas, and you have to join them together to understand it.
Yeah. Dan has made his Therify unit. He's got 60 of them around the planet at the moment, and they're.
Yeah. Are there any in the UK? Do you know?
I don't know.
What does it do? What does it do?
It's like the Lakowski coils, if you know those.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, it's
a kind of, it's not a plasma, it's the spark of the plasma.
Well, it is
ionized gas, which makes some radiation.
But listen, there's more than one way to solve problems, and I think if anybody who says that, you know, all the cache technology is the final answer is probably not thinking straight.
No, it's not a final answer. It's what we learned now from this plasma technology is like learning how to draw lines and circles and curves, which later we will put together in letters, which we'll use later to write our doctorate.
Mm.
I'd just say that I found the sort of scientific aspect with you know, the other views of things, like they're really important as well. I don't think you can just use one view personally.
Well, we've got Sandor's view on Sandor. You know, the carbon stick method. How would do you think that's a valid way, and how does that actually work in terms of the atomic masses created?
Nobody explained me why.
No,
I know Arvis Lieta from Lithuania. Arvis Lieta came with that idea, thinking of graphene, and he said the graphite is also made of
carbon.
Layers of graphene, because he had heard of that experiment where with a Scotch tape they just exfoliate some little graphene, and he thought to make it. But first of all, did he understand how the fields of this nanostructure work? I don't see the interaction of the fields. By the way, when you do a nanocoating with the cache method, there is an important step. If you don't do that, it will not work. When you do the nanocoating with hot caustic, you place the copper parts in a container which has a grate at the bottom. Under the bottom, the grate, there are the caustic crystals or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to put so much hot water suddenly to cover completely, to fill completely all the copper plates. Otherwise, it happens that which will stay above the water will get another kind of coating. It will become black, which will fall apart later.
Yeah.
So all has to be covered, and the copper has to stay shiny white under the caustic.
Yeah.
The temperature of the 100 centigrade water, boiling water, will jump up suddenly to 120 to 160, depending on the concentration, how much caustic you put. It will not boil off, because, you know, at what temperature the water does boil?
100. So, so you're
100? In which conditions?
Yeah, normal atmospheric, is it?
Normal atmospheric pressure. Normal means a figure. And it is, yes. But and pure water, because distilled water is different, and fountain water is different, which contains already some things inside. Put some salt in the water, and you will see that the temperature of boiling will increase. Put some salt in the water, you will see it will not freeze only at minus 21 centigrade. So we shall not forget about that. But you see, the system of teaching and the TVs and the commercials are just making people just to believe some ideas without understanding what's behind. An example, for instance, it was in Switzerland a conference of pharmacists and doctors, such a drugs industry conference. And there it was somebody who wanted to make a test. You know, it was a break and everybody was in the room. And he said, who can tell me how much is the value of the neutral pH? Everybody shouted in a chorus, 5.5. Which is absolutely wrong, because neutral is 7.
7.
But why they said 5.5? Do you remember the Johnson's products? Skin neutral 5.5 pH for Dove and other cosmetics.
Oh, really?
It was a soap promotion, a soap commercial, which it was imprinted so deeply in the subconscious that immediately they said it's 5.5. So don't do the same mistake. You see, we have engineers who are designing the drain of the sink and the toilet, and horror, they make all the drain pipes horizontal, considering that the water will go through, but they are not considering that from the toilet or from the sink you will have not water, but you have a mixture of dirt and water, which will not flow straight. It needs to have
a gradient,
an angle. Yeah. So this is when people work with theoretical things. In electronics, we have learned the capacitor is not a capacitor because it has an inductance if it's made as a coil of foils. Also, it may have a resistance. So don't think an ideal component. So same here. Water will not boil off if you put caustic, because the temperature of the boiling temperature will increase according to the concentration of what is diluted in it. So this is an excellent method when you do this nanocoating. So you put suddenly the hot water, the temperature jumps above 120 centigrades. That temperature is very important to give the extra energy for the atoms to get released from the surface. And the presence of potassium makes a huge difference. You know, for splitting things in nature, sometimes you need a little spark. Like in the body, in our bodies, there is the cobalamin, the vitamin B12, which makes the cells to split. Because that makes a little radiation. It contains, B12 contains cobalt. Which cobalt in nature, some part of it, it's an isotope which is always radioactive. Mr. Cash was looking for years to find that for nanocoating, and he found it is potassium, because there is a 0.7% of natural potassium, which is potassium-40 isotope, which has a half-life of 12 million years. That's a spice to it. So if you have a caustic soda, which is 99.5% purity, you have a different result. If it's 72% purity and the rest is sodium chloride, again is different because you have the presence of chlorine, which you don't want it. And if you have accidentally some potassium in it, you will get the good results. But you can add the potassium separately, either as potassium hydroxide or potassium chloride. When you dissolve it, it's not anymore a chloride, it's a chlor cation and the potassium anion. And now when you do the nanocoating, you keep it minimum 48 hours under that water. If you can heat insulate it to keep the heat longer, it's better. Then you remove the water. It's better to remove the water and not the plates. I have a very special method for that. And for that I'm using something like this.
Siphon.
Yes, I'm siphoning it out. Of course, I don't have a pump, so I take my...
You suck the caustic.
I take my protection gloves. I fill the tube with clean water, but I bend it in half.
Right.
So it's filled with water. So when I put my fingers with protective gloves always, as a plug, I put this inside and I put it at the bottom. When it reaches the bottom, I just release this at a lower level. Under the table is the bucket and above the table is the container. So I remove the caustic. Immediately as the caustic is removed, immediately you have to apply a millivoltmeter between two edges or 2 points at random of the copper pot to give a direction, a flow direction for that crystallization to occur. Have you seen in the winter such a ice flowers when the ice freezes on the window? So you see, it starts something in one direction, it starts something in the other, and finally it cannot continue because it is blocked by the other. Same happens when you do the nanocoating. It starts a crystallization, and they start to go head to head to fight head to head instead of going in parallel. But when you discharge that little self-created electricity with a piece of wire, doesn't need to be even a voltmeter. In that case, you give a little flow of nanoamperes, and that makes it directional. That makes a huge difference. And if you at this point, you will have a nice black surface, but it will not produce what you want.
And well, can I ask you, what do you do about the part of the plate which is in contact with the metal mesh, do you turn the plates at all, or is it fine?
When I have a metal mesh below and I have the plates above, in that case I just connect one pole of the voltmeter to the mesh and the other I put to the top of the plates.
And with the caustic as well, do you find the caustic makes blind spots on the plate if it's resting on the mesh in the liquid?
Yes. So you can perfect the method. You have to understand the principle. You can put them above the mesh, for instance. I had once I put into a box, such a polypropylene box. I put two copper wires lengthwise.
Just hang it.
Just hang it, or two bamboo sticks.
Yeah, right. To rest.
I used for making arrows of it. Nice bamboo stick.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just hang them there, so I had access with the both ends of it.
Yeah.
Or it was a Chinese knowledge seeker who made measurements. He checked with scanning electron microscope the quality of the surface. He tried to make the polarization vertically, horizontally, and diagonally, and he found the best result when he put on the rectangular copper plates at the opposite corners diagonally.
Right, very interesting.
Better structure. In case of a wire, you apply it to two ends.
Or to a grounding point.
Yeah, that's it's choice of technology.
Yeah.
And from a demonstration of an effect to the application, it's a lot of work for those who find their pleasure in finding good solutions for technology.
Yeah.
For instance, just for making such a health pan, for instance.
Yeah.
Some people call it a pain pan.
Yeah.
So such a little things of how to use a plastic tube as a spacer.
Yeah.
Which I have to remove now. Or how to put this together to avoid to destroy the fragile nano layers when I have to move them.
Yeah.
So I have to put in a special box with compartments. Sometimes you have such a statis or vials which are excellent. Just you have to put inside dense metal mesh. So not a chicken wire, but something tighter.
To hold it up.
In that case, for technological purpose, you have all these three on the mesh. So you have a contact there, and you can reach with the tip here, and here. And later you move them all together and just holding very carefully. So many people don't understand that when they work with nanomaterials. I've seen people making measurement, putting crocodile clips on it. Even if you touch it, you crush those layers, and it will be completely different conditions. Yeah. Idea would be to not touch them at all, but at least what we can do is just to hold them by the edges, like when you were handling such old photos.
Yeah.
Not put the finger.
So would you never make GANs in the tub using a direct current of any sort? Would you always use an LED?
I never use current for that.
Always the LED.
Also with graphite, they are making something, but I don't know its properties.
Yeah. Can I ask you, the LED, do you think it matters which way round it is? The
LED will not light, but it will represent a resistor of order of 50 megaohms, 100 megaohms or so.
Do you have to put positive leg on the nano?
It's a current limiting device. If you have no LED, just use nano-coated copper wires and twist them together.
Does it matter which way round it is, the LED? Not really? It's just current limiting.
Look at the technical sheet with the characteristics.
But it says...
If you put in the opening direction, you will see the current voltage diagram.
Yeah. So
there's a technical sheet for it. But instead of LED, I'm using two nano-coated wires, which I put together. And one good nano-coating, it's about 20 megaohms, and it does the job perfectly.
Right.
Just we had a Romanian gentleman who shared such an experiment. I don't know if it's his one or he just translated someone's. I don't remember where was it, in which folder, shared on the Facebook. I'm trying to find it. So made a differential experiment, somebody, which conditions are better for making CO2 gas. And one was with the water 5% salinity, other 10%, other 15%, some with LED, some with wires only, and so on. And he found that with 5% salt in the water, he obtained a more puffy, bigger quantity of gas in the same unit of time.
Yeah.
And the copper oxide nanocoating lasts more than on the more concentrated. So if you put too much salt, in that case, you make bigger currents, which will remove the coating and so on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow the nature. You see, gases were formed in the nature, so it was a copper ore, and maybe it was thunderstruck.
Yeah.
So that's why it created oxide and sulfides and whatever. And those natural surfaces were touched by the water, and the salinity of the sea, that's enough, such a 3%, 3.5%.
Yeah. That's
the first time I made guns, I actually used nano-coated copper wire to join the black coated copper plate and the zinc plate.
That's the best. And better to use two wires than to twist them together.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I misunderstood what I thought I was being told, because I just watched it, and basically it worked. I mean, I certainly got something that looked very much like a white gel type material dropping out.
Yes.
But then I made it again with copper wire twisted, and that also generated a white. One of them generated zinc oxide, basically nano zinc oxide.
Yeah, it depends on conditions.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I had that measured at the best place in the UK to get analysed. But basically, I was surprised, when I look back at it, that at the time that I actually got anything happen with the nano-coated copper wire joining the plates together. I'm less surprised now, because I think I understand it a little bit better.
Yeah. So this is how is the classical method to twist two wires together, preferably to have already nano-coated ones.
Yes.
And to have a point which looks upward like an antenna.
Yes. Okay.
We are imitating the nature. Just look at the trees.
Yeah, makes sense.
The leaves. All kinds of leaves have a point.
Sandor, is that your preferred way of doing it now then?
Yes.
Okay.
And you see, a leaf is always a color on one side, and on the verso, on the other side, it's a different color. So it's a combination of two nano layers, and in between place the conditions to capture the CO2 and the nitrogen from the air.
Yeah.
And I think that point is important. And here also, if you make this, so not just connect it with a straight wire, but to connect it in this way, to have two wires twist and which looks up. In that case, you create a similar condition, because you need here a free surface between the zinc and the nano-coated. Which gives out the field to attract the carbon.
Yeah.
Actually, when you are making dances, you can tap into that universal plasma which fills all the universe, all the galaxies and so on, which has a different strength in the center, and then the strength is changing with the distance and so on. Such a vacuum, what does it mean, a vacuum? The absence of particles. But the fields are everywhere.
Yeah, undifferentiated.
Yeah, you cannot make a Faraday cage for the gravitational waves. Not for the waves, for the fields. Sorry.
Fields, yeah.
Yeah. The fields going everywhere.
Yeah.
Could I just ask you a question, Sandor?
Yes,
On
please.
your drawing, where you've got the CO2 box, do you get better, or not better, but do you have an increased effect when both wires are nano-coated?
When I put nano-coated wires, the nano-coating, it's in between them, it's electrically insulating, but lengthwise it's conducting. I need this whiteboard again. Sorry. We are all drawing. So you see there are layers on the surface, layers, and more layers. I have to use a paint program to replicate faster these dots. Now it is here. And here in between the layers you have some gaps. And this is the rest of the metal, the substrate. And here in between you get here some channels where you have practically no resistance.
Okay.
So you have to understand, this is very interesting. In this direction, you get a superconductor. But on the transversal direction, you get a high resistance.
Have you measured that?
Good insulator.
You know, you say it's a superconductor along its length.
Yeah, you know, the whole difficulty is how to connect to it.
Have you been able to measure that?
They have been. What's the difficulty? It's the difficulty is to connect to this edge. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Because if you want to connect from the top, in that case, you reach the barrier.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to make a delicate contact, and what you see, the magrav systems which you have, if you measure with a ohmmeter or a mega ohmmeter, you will see it's high insulating. It's tens of mega ohms. Yet it can the power can go through into a foam. And there have been such an experiments you can find on the foundation's website. Okay. There were two twisted wires, nano-coated.
Yeah.
And here in between, it was making light. If you put the battery here, battery was here, light was here.
Okay.
But they were twisted together, so it was no short circuit here, but the power went on longitudinal direction. Or also at the Ghent University,
but you've still got to join your battery to your wires, haven't you?
Yeah,
you know,
that's the technical part. At the Ghent University, they made some experiments on Mr. Cash's nanowires by connecting them to a power source, and they measured how many amperes can go through. So they increased up the voltage to increase the amps to such a level that it was glowing red, and practically all the copper inside was molten, was vaporized. But the very thin, such a 1/10 of millimeter thick nano-coated wire was still bringing through such a 100 amps. So I don't know the value exactly, I don't want to tell a lie, but they were amazed because the metal was molten, but this was still conducting.
Yeah, where was that done?
Ghent University. Yeah. Ghent University.
Okay.
They are somewhere in some channels of YouTube or whatever, such a video.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Dirk Lauresens had made such a video of the experiment. Although it's a partial video, but you can see the glowing wire.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So anyway, I didn't want to talk, so but I did talk. So
that's been amazing. Thank you. That's been amazing input. It's been really nice to have somebody clarify, reassure us really about the main principles and methods.
Yeah, so
much.
You have to go from the base, and you have to talk according to the interest of audience.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So different to somebody who is an engineer, different to somebody who is a doctor, different to somebody who is a farmer, different to a teenager. But if you understand, you can explain for everybody in their own language.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, can I ask you the $1 million question? Which, in your words, how does the magrav work?
Which magrav?
The reactor, the first one, the passive one.
So there are so many testimonials. Go to testimonials.cashfoundation.
No, just not that it works, just how it works. You know, how is it inducing the plasma?
Not what result it makes, but what's the principle of functioning.
Yeah.
So think about it's an interesting replication of some phenomenon of the universe.
Yeah.
It would took to repeat the blueprint week, which Mr. Cash has explained. So I cannot tell you that in a couple of minutes. It's a replication of what happens. An intro has been done in 2016, and October 26th as a start day. It was the so-called Blueprint Week. You can find on the YouTube channel of Cash Foundation Spaceship Institute.
Yeah, I've seen that.
There's your playlist for that. When Mr. Cash explained the principles. We have to understand the experiments which were before, when it was, for instance, that model which Arman made with a coil into a tube filled with gas, where he applied, put a wire in the middle, and he tried to create a plasma pressure. So that was one of the prototypes, which was going up and up and up. So the principle is to realize the motion of the fields.
Around the coil.
Coils will induce the power. That's the main principle.
Yeah.
To create the motion of the fields, not by the current, but by the interaction of the fields. Now, they are working on this independent off-grid power source, which still needs some perfecting. There are some issues that they cannot keep the produced power low, and they don't. So they have to find that. Some small fine-tunings are needed to be able to mass produce it.
Yeah.
It's going on experimental.
So the electric current being put into a magrav, is that literally blocked by the high resistance of the nanocoating and is inducing plasma then to flow? Is there any electric current actually going through the...
Yes and no. By connecting it to the grid.
Is it going through the copper
you create a demand. You understand, you have a supply and demand. You have the ridge, the mountain, and you have the valley.
Yeah.
Without the valley, the water will not flow from the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
You have to create that demand, that valley. Yin and yang, the same principle. And for that, when you connect it to the grid, that it shows the alternating power and the other consumers. But that in terms of plasma. Just now we use to use this electric current, which is the vibration of the smallest part of the atom, which is the electron. And with the magrav system, you use the fields of the nucleus, which is much bigger. Use the fields of neutron and of the proton. To have a working magrav, it's very important to have the CH3.
In one of the cores.
Such a 3-hydrogen carbon, or give it a name if you want. You can give 100 names to it. That seems to be an atom of carbon connected not with oxygen, but with 3-hydrogen, which is a tritium state. So it's not 3 hydrogen atoms. In GANs, it's different than in molecular condition. In molecule, you have distinct electrons and parts of the nucleus. When you have GANs, you have a field which has the field strength of a certain value. And now if from a plasma you cut this bit, you call it with a name. If you cut a big bit, you call it in a different way. That is the same plasma, but different quantities create different entities. And we say to them, this is hydrogen, now this is lithium, this is gold, this is uranium, and so on. But it's plasma, plasma, and plasma. It's a quite different aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the atomic mass is, it's just the different strength. We give different names.
Yeah.
It's the same tightly coiled plasma or less tightly coiled, stronger, more of it, less of it.
You see, there have been an original idea, which was exposed with the Blueprint Week. Later, they came with the corrections, the adjustments according to the latest discoveries. How to make a better capacitor, how to change the distance between the coils. That doesn't mean that the distance between the coils made by the factory will be easily changed, because, you know, developing a plastic injection mold tool for 6 pieces, it costs about, I don't know, 20,000 pounds or something like that. And if you miss the first, then you have to make the second or the third version. In that case, 100,000 just go out, past way. So you keep on that, but you can follow to make it better, to have the distance between, the number of turns have been adjusted. And for instance, the latest good advices which Mr. Kesh gave, he just dropped unexpectedly on January 3rd this year in in European time, I think by UK time it should be by around 8 o'clock AM on every Wednesday, on every Wednesday. Rick Raymond does that Kesh plasma reactor group since many years, I think at least 4 years or maybe 5. And that around 2 hours and 42 minutes, Mr. Kesh dropped in and he started to talk about his experiences. Now he has more time to go into the lab to see the research and development, and he talked about the recommendations for correcting some things in handling the nanomaterials, in the way how to you make the nano layers, and about the importance of giving a different gas coating to different coils. So originally you had a mixture of all three and put all on them, but recently CH3 is applied only on the magnetical coils, because CH3 is the only magnetical gas. All the oxides are gravitational. All they are taking, only that which contains hydrogen is able to give. And for now from that it came another technical issue, how to put them together without scratching the surface of the coils. And
inside each other.
Engineer, Mr. Virgil Brudaru already find the solution. He just, for that long mustache of that inner coil, he just makes it separated with a split, and he uses such kind of connection. You see? Yeah. This is a well-calibrated diameter stick, just to have a here maybe 0.2 millimeters maximum in between, not too tight, not too loose. So, and he already formed as in a round and 2 round things. You can just put in one into the other like a screw, by screwing into.
Yeah. So was he talking about having to coat the inside coil and the outside coil separately, or the outer and the inner? Separating, and then put together without making hard, because if you nanocoat them together, which was an earlier idea, it makes a problem that you cannot apply different gases on the different coils, and then how you make the difference of potential. Yeah, that was even on the inside tube. It wasn't quite clear. That is what he meant. That is really hard then, isn't it, to separately coat them and then assemble them? Yes, but we have now the method. Which is what you said. Oh, good, yes. Let me find it for you. Yeah. I did happen to hear that. Too many windows open. So I need some time for the computer to react. Yeah. Not that window, the other. Maybe I stopped my video for that, again, slowing down a bit the computer. I have hundreds of open windows. I'm working on something. Just a second. Oh, when I start Facebook, that's slowing down my computer.
Yeah.
Slows it down. Just keep on talking, and I'll come back when I'll be able to open that.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful, because when I was listening to that workshop, I wasn't sure if you meant the inner pair should be done separately to the outer pair, or the inner of each pair. If it's the latter, that is a heck of a job, isn't it?
Yeah. Second, I have to kill some processes and to restart something.
Okay. Okay.
It's the Control Alt and Escape button.
So is everybody now coating their magrav coils in this way in the group? Heath, have you?
Okay, Firefox crashed. Oh, it's taking 4 gigs of memory, 5 gigs of memory.
What? Gig?
Yes, it's the Firefox.
Really?
Others have no such quantity of memory on their computer. I have 16 at least.
Jeez. Okay.
I don't know why Firefox does it. It's a memory hog.
Yeah. Well, can you describe that method? It's just about being careful, I guess, is it? About how to embed them without scratching them?
Just a second. Now I want to start the Firefox again, and it opens again 56 windows, which I don't need them. Oh my God. And of course, all the YouTube channels will start playing.
Paying?
You know, after a crash, Firefox opens automatically all the closed windows.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not so smart like Chrome or Opera. And if there is a video page, it starts playing it automatically. Sometimes 10 at the same time.
Gosh.
But still, I'm using it because it has some extensions which are very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for downloading files. Okay.
Has anyone else got any questions? We're all waiting with tenterhooks about this one.
I didn't read the group chat, but I saw so many things, so many messages, so maybe there are some questions there.
No, it's right. It's mostly Jay sharing some comments. I don't think
Jay is very productive in comments.
Yeah.
He needs a special prize among the students, because the students' chat group is usually 40% filled by one single person.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandor, for the acknowledgement. Thank you.
No. Keep a good balance between inflow and outflow, and you will feel better.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
You know why people have 2 ears and one mouth?
Listening, you learn more than speaking.
So basically, the variable you're using between the coatings and the coils, it can only be the sort of like sodium, potassium hydroxide, sorry, the salt solution that you're using.
Yeah, and you have to understand when you make the nano coating, you use sodium. When you make the gas, also you use the sodium, but in another form.
Yeah.
The sodium chloride. You can make the nano coating, for instance, with potassium hydroxide, and to use a potassium salt, you get a different spacing between the layers, between the atoms of the nano layer. You get something different.
Well, you know what's really interesting about the carbon stick method, for example, or using direct current on the original method, is people.
I never have seen
I know.
I never had experienced anything with that carbon stick method, but I have seen some people who already promoted on certain Facebook groups such a carbon stick, which was carbon fiber for fishing rod.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
no good.
Gosh.
Which is a perfect insulator because they could not differentiate between carbon and carbon. What's a diamond? What's in the lead in your pencil?
Yeah,
it's
different.
Carbon, but in your pencil you have other additives. You have clay, for instance, or recently polymers.
Right.
So not all carbons are equal. And why carbon? I didn't understand.
I know, but people are getting really good results with healing.
Yeah, they produce a lot of things, but I don't know what they produce with that. So I'm not sure about. I stick to the traditional methods which I understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Meanwhile, I found...
Well, the herbal Gans that I got, as you know, Oliver, that was made using a graphite, not using the
welding rod,
not using nano-coated copper, but using a graphite electrode with zinc, and there's a battery, there's a sort of battery in the circuit as well. So, and that works.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But I've got no experience at all with this sort of stuff. I haven't done this because my mind hasn't grasped what I'm trying to achieve. I know I just don't quite understand it really. So I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
I could make it, but I don't know quite what I'm doing. So I haven't bothered yet.
Yeah, I don't say any of the methods would be wrong, but you see the difference at the end with the end result. You see, like it's written in the Bible, the tree by its fruit.
The what?
Try whatever. So Mr. Cash gives all the freedom to us to try whatever we want. He will not contradict, but he will teach us the way he knows it's going well. Okay, so this is the short video, 8 minutes. I'm reducing to 4 minutes by speeding up to double speed.
Great.
And it's in Romanian language.
They're really tidy.
So I put the volume down, I mute it, and I try to speak about. You see, the innovation is here. They are all pre-made in the as perfect as possible circle. And the inner wire is provided also with connectors. So now Mr. Brugaro had a different method. You see, it's a hermaphrodite connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the tool which he uses for that. It's basically a piece of boomstick with a very, very strong tempered steel inside. I found such a watch repairman's screwdrivers, for instance, which have a proper stick. I tried with the pieces of drill bits, but those are too fragile.
They are. Bicycle spokes work.
Yes. Find your own material. It's no recipe for it.
Or a bike might work.
So you have to match the diameter somehow with the diameter of wire we use.
Yeah.
If I'm using this 1.5 square millimeter wire, which is a Europe standard, this is 1.38 millimeters. For that, I found a 1.4 millimeter screwdriver. It works well.
Yeah.
And also here he has maybe, you cannot see, it has a hole drilled in parallel into which he can put this end of the wire so he can twist it easier. Inserted in. Yes, he's not showing it.
Yeah, brilliant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can use either normal connections or this hermaphrodite style or whatever.
They're very neat.
Work. You see, this is how he produces it.
So you don't even need to warm up the copper; it goes anyway.
Yeah, you have to choose, if possible, the soft grade copper, oxygen-free, soft grade. Don't try with the hard; it will not work so well.
Yeah.
I found a good supply from UK Scientific Wire. You can find it on the website.
Yeah, that's what we use.
It's maybe maybe twice as cheap, twice as expensive as others, but my time is more expensive. I don't want to waste it to throw the material and later to buy a better one.
Yeah.
So once these are made, you will see you can nanocoat them separately. You can GaNs coat them with different GaNs to create different potentials there. You see how you put them inside each other effortlessly. It would be better maybe to use some slippery plastic guide inside, something to reduce the friction as much as possible, to not damage too much. And also, if you add a few drops of sodium hydroxide into the GaN soup, in that case, that will help to repair later the eventually damaged layers.
Yeah.
So now inserts the inner. You see?
Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's very difficult to put them together.
Right. Oh, can you share this link on the chat?
Yes, sure.
That'd be brilliant. Oh, it's so tidy.
So it's simple. When he talks about, repeats the same thing with the other coil.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, all is to make all the sizes in time. So before to cut, you have to measure 10 times at least.
Yeah. Gosh.
Maybe you will waste somewhere 300 grams of copper to make the first set, which you keep as a model.
Yeah.
And later you can just replicate that. Just let me take the link and to share it.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Copy, paste into the chat to everyone. Here you are. Thanks to Mr. Brudaru. In Romania, there is a very active group, and we have several scientists, engineers there. We had somebody, for instance, who was studying water for 30 years, searching for the so-called water of life. And he was not thinking to load a vehicle, like the French call the liquor.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe you have heard of such a polymerized water which was produced in the 80s first time in such a capillary tubes, and researchers observed that some molecules of water are twisted to right, some to the left. And one of them is necessary for life. Its absence, the water will not sustain life. And he made so many experiments with plants. Later, some other scientists all saying it's hearts and so on. But anyway, some researchers for that for some decades on the different qualities of water. And for instance, for that engineer, we got such ideas for checking the quality of the GaNs water, plasma waters, or of the raw material water which you use by a Kapasi meter. So let me start my video. You just get a Kapasi meter.
Right.
LCR meter. But this is only up to 200 microfarads, and his one was for several farads. And you choose from here some value, and here you make an extension. He made a special electrode with two stainless steel tubes, which were concentrical one into the other, with some insulator, and they were at a certain vibrated distance, and that he put into the water. And that's why that's how he checked the quality of the water. And the same pure water with no salt had a quite different capacity if it was activated by plasma. So instead of some nanofarads, he had some farads capacity. Very interesting. So there are so many things open for research.
That's really good, and that's what Mr. Cash was talking about last week, wasn't it? About trying to measure stuff and quantify it.
Yeah. And this engineer, it is Vlad Teodorescu, it's his name. for instance, he found a spring, a natural spring, with a water which is excellent for life. It's a spring of Yaus, but he will never disclose again its location because he disclosed it some decades ago, and he had big problems with the owner of the private area where the spring is, because it's on a private terrain, not a public space. And so many tourists just went there for picking water from there. You can find such a places in mountains where you have such a lead ore.
Yeah.
Where usually it was uranium, and due to depletion, natural depletion, the lead was created. In those areas, you can find such a waters with special qualities. And now the plasma water from the CO2 had the same measurable qualities, which was very interesting.
Mm. And those are the places that we'd have called healing springs and so on, and traditionally, yeah. And it really, yeah.
You see, there is now somebody like this Dirk Lorenz, who now he has a blog. I think maybe 200 people are reading it. Where he writes now since some years, since 2015. He keeps writing about how bad Keshe is, Mr. Keshe. And before he was praising him and so on. Just anyway, we know the reasons behind. Interestingly, it was the opening of the university, Lum University, Libero Università Mediterranea Jean Monnet in Trani, in Italy, and where the Spaceship Institute opened its courses on 21st April 2015, and on March that year, this Mr. Lorenz has registered websites like CasimirBattery.com and CasimirBatteries.com. He abandoned them meanwhile, and he tried to patent the same technology of Mr. Keshe, just reword it slightly and to explain it with the principle of Casimir battery. So anyway, and he wrote recently that how dangerous it is, because Keshe Foundation is injecting people who go to the cancer trial with dangerous nanomaterials, and he's shown some articles about the dangerous effects of the zinc oxide in nanostate. But interestingly, it's never used such thing in the trials. They are not using such materials. What they are using, it's chemically, it's a pure water. So I took this up because it's about the water, but it's not a water, it's a plasma water. You know, the water...
It looks to me like it's a colloid.
You see that in the chemistry, you have limited tools to understand the processes of life. From the point of a chemist, how does a man work?
If you look at the water above the GANs, it scatters laser light very well, like you get in colloidal silver, for instance.
I should try to measure it with interferometer, and I have an interferometer.
Yeah.
Refractometer, not interferometer. Sorry, I have a refractometer.
But I mean that's really good stuff. For health, I wouldn't have any problem at all in using that. I mean, I know you need to test it, but just drinking that water is brilliant. So if you take GANs, whether it's the herbal GANs or the white GANs, zinc oxide, carbon dioxide GANs, and you let the GANs, the solid part of the GANs settle, and you drink the top part of the.
You can even filter it with a microfilter, to be sure.
Well, say again.
You can even filter it with a microfilter.
You don't need to filter it.
Of course not, because it's.
No, it's fine, absolutely fine. I mean, I've been doing that for like 6 months, and other people I know have been doing it for a lot longer. Yeah, it's good. It's good for your health, as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't, recommend somebody does it if they're worried about it. But the thing is, whatever's in that top part, it does scatter laser light, and it's an alkaline environment when you measure it. So it's very good for you.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing. So you can measure the pH value, you can measure its capacity, for instance, its dielectric.
But I think, you know, we're learning all sorts about it. You know, the actual water itself stores the information from the GANs, you know, very well, I would say.
Masaru Emoto, so blessed be his soul, he died in 2012. He was the Japanese scientist who was studying about the structures of the water. Yeah, his family, his son, and his widow are doing further the institute.
Okay.
There is an institute in Japan, and if you send a sample of water, they are testing it and so on.
Yes.
So what's interesting, I saw a short video about how they are doing the testing. They went to a spring to pick some water.
Yeah.
And they put in a small plastic container, and before to make the freezing test, which is a special one, they had to shake it with hand for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's a similar process like in homeopathy, for instance.
Sure, yes.
When the water takes the information from a material which is inside. And interesting, if you have a homeopathic product and you ship it by air transport and it goes through the security control, or at high altitude it's radiated by the natural radiation, in that case it loses its effect. It loses its magnetical properties. Mr. Cash has on the website a paper. I don't know how the delivery of papers work or not work now, but once I bought the paper about the homeopathy. He explains well with plasmatic terms how homeopathy works.
Yeah, I paid for that 6 years ago. Still haven't received it, but maybe I'll try again.
Oh my God! So you had to get a link and
I have to try again. Yeah. Does the same happen to GANs?
I think meanwhile it was a problem with it was an issue that is delivered through a company who uses the PayPal only.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the problem with PayPal was there were some people who made a plot. We have the proof of all of them because they were communicating and open in forums. They just made a plot to order products and later to refuse the product.
Yeah. I don't know.
Depends on the orders. And when you do that in a certain quantity, in that case, PayPal blocks your account and starts research and so on. I think it's still ongoing, the process with PayPal.
Yeah. Oh, well,
I shouldn't speak of it. Sorry for that.
All right. So does the same happen with GANs waters? If you're putting them in aeroplanes or crossing X-ray security, do you know?
It will alter it for sure. It will do something with it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to know how to produce it. You know Stilton cheese?
Yeah.
Where do you live?
London.
Oh, great. So you know how good is a Stilton cheese. So try to buy a Stilton cheese in Europe and taste it. It's quite different.
Yeah, yeah.
While you transport it, or try a brown beer, an English beer, which is exported.
Yeah, and it's
airplane.
Yes, well,
taste is nothing like the original.
Yeah, and they say wine doesn't travel, for example. It's the same thing, isn't it? Just entering different fields.
Best wine, you can drink it from the cellar of the producer. No preservatives, just in the...
Yeah.
And if you try to get a bottle of Chianti out of Italy, it tastes completely different than anywhere else in the world. And that's mostly because the Italians hoard the good Chianti locally and don't ship out the stuff for the rest of the world.
There are many explanations.
So if you
anyway, you get the best orange juice directly from the orange. From the cardboard box.
Yeah.
That's the best natural packing, it in the orange peel.
Yes.
Fresh is always best.
Keith, you're a bit far away if that's you talking. Can't hear you very well. Well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Fresh juice is always best.
Yeah. Well, do you think it keeps, if you're traveling plasma water, do you keep some of the GANs gel in it? Does that, I feel that helps retain the charge. Is that true?
That's a good idea.
I would say probably. It's highly probable that way.
Yeah.
Because remember, the GANS is the pure source of the energy. The
Yeah.
plasma water is the imprinted
Yeah.
GANS energy on it. So it can be affected, but it still has a 100-year shelf life, according to what I've heard Mr. Kesh say.
Right. Well, yeah. Although I think he also said to somebody on a telephone call that with the cancer stuff, they should come in soon because they have a fresh batch, as though the fresh batch of plasma water does denature after a few days. But maybe we're interpreting that wrong. Maybe you meant it's a better batch.
Cancer is not treated with any, not processed with the patches.
Yeah, I think it was the injection, the plasma water he would use to inject or something. But he said
it's going now. The foundation is going. Mr. Kesh is going to build up now whole establishment in Ghana.
Yeah,
we heard that in the public workshops they appeal for donations.
Yeah,
and there will be the supply source of medical research and so on.
Yeah, yeah.
Here some logistics are needed. So you cannot bring something unapproved in countries where there are severe regulation, which requires 4 or 5 years of testing before. But you can travel as a tourist to another country if you want.
Right.
Anyway, that's a different subject and a new hope.
Yeah.
About the packing of plasmatic water, for instance, or gas. Maybe you have to follow the nature. You see, the fruit itself, when it contains the orange, for instance, which contains its juice, it has several nanolayers. It's a plasmatic environment inside.
Yeah, preservative.
So also for holding or keeping for a long time your plasmatic material, you have to think to nanocoat your plastic containers. It's quite different if you put in glass. In a silica glass, which is made of silicon and soda. Sodium, different if you put it into polypropylene, for instance, in which you produced it. I used to nanocoat my boxes, which I use for CO2 kits, for instance. So I treat them in hot caustic. And it's a different result when I use a fresh one.
Right.
Another thing, if you had a plasma into a container, you can wash it, you can scrub it, the plasma stays there. If you have a container in which you produce copper oxide and you want to produce CO2 gas in it, you will see that the result will be green color. Because those fields are still residing there, even though you remove the plates and you scrub the box.
Yeah, good reminder. Thank you. Yeah.
Or I had a friend who previously he had a very good success in creating GANs in huge quantities, and now his GANs doesn't start producing. But below the table with the GANs, he has huge containers with other kind of GANSes, and they produce fields. You have to consider the fields of the environment as well.
What was the effect there? It didn't stop producing or didn't start producing?
He couldn't start producing the new GANs, and later he discovered that under the table he had a huge jar filled with other kind of GANs.
Right. Right, so they're interfering with the beginning of the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had another gentleman from Budapest, let's say Mr. Janos, I don't say his full name, he didn't allow me that.
Yeah.
He's a pensioner engineer in electronics, and he started a couple of years ago experiments, and he used the greenhouse, a small house, little, almost like a tent of 2 by 4 meters, made of metal frame and polycarbonate plates instead of glass, in his garden. And in one corner he had a 40 liters IKEA box for making the nanocoating, and on the opposite diametral opposite corner at 4 meters he had a table where he had just thrown around some metal clamps made of zinc coated steel, And the metal clamps at 4 meter distance got nanocoating too. Another thing, he had some grape juice, fresh grape juice. He has some wine, and he had them in a big, such a soda bottles, like Fanta bottles and so on, such a 2 liter ones, and which were near to the box where he made the nanocoating. Something interesting happened. Some days later, that very thin plastic label made of BOPP, biaxially oriented polypropylene, you know, those sticky labels which are put on soft drinks, started to crack and to fall apart. But not from the bottles which had water inside or which were empty. Only those which had a grape juice. So some plasma reaction occurred in the grape juice. And if he had someone where this process didn't start, but it had grape juice exposed to the fields of the nanocoating, he brought them home to the city from his weekend house, and the process continued. And the plastic labels were cracking and falling apart. I said, wow, geez, it's a very good accidental observation. Maybe it gives a chance for developing a method to use plasma technology to get rid of such a dangerous waste like plastic labels or whatever. Other interesting thing from the same gentleman some years ago, he put in series some small boxes, one electrode being of nano-covered copper, and the other zinc, and he put in series maybe 6 cells like that, and he put an LED at the end. And once he wanted to adjust something, he had a voltmeter on the ends, and he observed if he took out the electrodes of one of the containers which were in series, he still had a voltage very decreased just with 30 millivolts only. So the circuit was going through the plasma, not with the wire. Not through the wire, but through the plasma. So these are little things which you observe, it makes you thinking about. As Mr. Cash told, don't look at the wires, think in terms of plasma, what happens with plasma. Try to understand that. And you see, with nanocoating, nanomaterials, with ganses, it's one step which leads us to the understanding of plasma. But the real thing, the real purpose is to make people able to work directly with plasma without needing wires, without needing other physical tools.
Yeah.
And that's a huge leap for a man who is educated to believe only what he can touch.
Yeah.
One of the recommendations, which Mr. Cash told, wow, jacket potato. No, an orange. Tangerine. Tangerine. Okay.
That's what I'm eating.
Good. You see, when you open it, how it is arranged, how the plasma, and how they are positioned the seed inside. It's like a perfect.
I have seen a thing on YouTube, and there's guys that have made stuff called a lemon battery or an orange battery.
Yes. It's a chemical battery, and some put it as a joke in survivalist groups, but you cannot make a light which to last a couple of days of it.
It's running in series or parallel.
Yeah.
I was able to light LED for a week or so, but I'm just wondering, can if I had one lemon, could I work out a way of how to power my whole house?
Yeah, it's not about the lemon, it's about juice inside. So you rediscover the Volta battery.
Yeah.
Go back to all the school manuals.
Okay.
It's difference of the electrochemical potential between two metals in classical terms of physics.
It's just the positrons and the neutrons breaking down and stuff like the Baghdad battery type of thing?
No, it's electrochemistry.
Yeah.
It's electrochemistry. Try to use your emotion to work with plasma. What Mr. Cash recommended us last time, make a spectrum, a range of monoplasma. What does it mean, monoplasma? Plasmas of the same material, for instance, zinc.
Sandor, last week somebody said if I arrange the Alex beads in a certain formation, I can capture plasma and I'll be able to run my laptop and everything just with the Alex beads.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Just have to get enough voltage to.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can always invert the voltage and things, but as long as I can capture something with the Alex beads, I'll work on that. I just wanted to find out if it was real or not before I buy the copper wire to make some.
Understand the Alex beads, you can combine it with the magrav coils.
Yeah, they're very good. Plasma
I wanted to talk a bit, not of magravs and not of energy. You can power your mobile phone or your laptop, but if it will come what it has to come, and we cannot stop it, which is a natural process. When two solar systems get too close and they just collide each with other, you would like to be as far as possible from the radiation and from the explosion of that. Well, this is the big task. This is the big challenge. To make at least a part of these 7 billion people, not to say about the other beings of this planet, including the ants, bees, fish, birds, and so on, to make possible to get a new home when the old home will not be anymore available. And the conditions will not be, the new conditions will not be suitable for this form of life.
Is there a new home available?
We don't know when it happens, but it will happen. You know, in terms of a human lifetime, it may be long, but in terms of universe, it's just a natural process which always happens. You can see.
If it happened tomorrow, just out of the blue, what are we going to do?
Not tomorrow. Before it will happen, you will see a shower of meteorites. Okay. When you see a huge shower of meteorites, you will see time is very close, maybe weeks.
If it was going to happen tomorrow, about all you could do at this point, unless you have your reactors, you have your emotions in order where you can fly yourself, is basically bend over and kiss your butt goodbye, because you're going to transition out of your physical form.
Yes. You know, some people may build spaceships, physical spaceships with reactors. But after they build it, they still need years to learn how to control it, how to navigate it, how to communicate, how to not get lost in space. You see the people who tried to go with a boat on the sea. How many went and how many returned at the beginning? Do you think the universe is different? Look at the Odyssey, then this Ulysses or Odysseus was lost for about 20 years just on the Mediterranean Sea, which is not so big. And he was lucky to return home, and many didn't return after the siege of Troy.
You can always hang out with your buddies that are buzzing around.
So you can see the biggest chance for survival is for those who will be able to discover their soul, to discover the location of their soul, their emotion, and they will be able to create with use of the emotion a body which will protect them in certain environment, and the body will be created according to the conditions of the environment. Even here on Earth, you see some beings like to fly, some beings like to walk, some are swimming. They have a different style of body. 5 fingers may be not very useful under the water, but maybe you need something else. Same if you go to the space. And as an introductory experiment, just I don't know if you listen Mr. Cash's presentations the last 2 weeks, a simple experiment, create a variety of zinc oxide ganses. Make them in different conditions, different salinity, different distance between the plates, or if you use current, use different amperage, but to make a assortment of them. Wash these ganses and put them in a round, transparent ball. Like you find those big balls for Christmas trees, like it fits in your hand, like an orange. And put different layers. And then try to focus your attention and your emotion on it. And observe which emotion will make which gas to react, to change its position, to change its shape. That will be the first training to understand how you can use your emotions to create an effect in the physical world. Try to do that. Basically, to make a gas of an oxide of metal, you have to use, like in the copper oxide gas reactor, you use 2 plates of the same metal, one nano-coated, the other not. Nano-coating zinc is not very straightforward because you cannot put in hot caustic because it will react violently like aluminum. You will get a lot of hydrogen and not much of the plate will be left. So you have to use very much diluted caustic, maybe 0.5% or 1%, and to use a lower temperature, such as 60 centigrades, for instance, and immersion, you see how much time is needed, 1 minute or 1 second. But the rest is the same. You need to do the conditioning. You have to apply the voltmeter to give it the direction to the layers. So you create your nano-coated zinc plates and you pair with the others, you put in salt water, you start making your zinc oxide gas. You see, zinc, the plasma of the zinc is the same strength like the plasma of the human emotions. If you look at the whole list of all the isotopes of the zinc, you will find quite many.
It's fascinating, just that, isn't it? To think how
for every strength of every isotope, there is an equivalent emotion. And same you see the isotopes of the copper, how many there are in totality, not just which are in nature, because what is in the living organism, it's much more complex. There are nuclear reactions inside for dividing cells and so on. You will find the same number of isotopes for copper, like for the isotopes of zinc. Look at Wikipedia about isotopes of copper, isotopes of calcium, isotopes of zinc, and so on. You will see, and you will understand for every human emotion there is a strength of zinc. Copper that is needed in the body for transmitting the signal, the command to the red muscle. Not to the white muscle, to the red muscle. And emotion, what does it mean, emotion? It comes from Latin. Even in English you have motion and you have an E before. It means something which is before the emotion, before the motion. Emotion precedes the motion. Emotions are dictating you to get closer, to get further, to hide, to run away, or to give up, or to attack. These are the basic emotional reactions. Of course, it has so many half tones, and it's an entire range. So you see, there is a fear when you run away, and there is an anger when you just attack whatever moves. And in between, there are so many other emotions, like hate, like resentment, like talking to others, how bad is the other, to find somebody who to protect or fight instead of you, or ways just the moment before you run away, which is called anxiety. You just don't know whether to run in left or right direction. Also, there is another one, a bit higher, when people just smile, but they hide their hands and they just prepare how to attack in secret way. And it looks like a cheerful person, just the difference is emotion, because a cheerful person will approach quickly and bravely, while the other moves like a coward, only when you don't look at him. But the smile is same. Also, fear has so many degrees of fear. There is a fear when you just want to run away. When you cannot run away, you try to become invisible. You just don't move, you hold your breath, and you try to become one who is the bush or one who is the wall. And if it still catches you, it goes into terror when the body liquids get released. You know that, when you meet a bear in the forest. You have to have very thick trousers to not see the effect. Its purpose is very simple: to make, to create poisons and to make the body to be dirty, to be not eaten. As a reason. But there is a very low emotion below below grief, near to apathy, when it is such a self-abasement, when somebody is just punishing himself in order to escape some other punishment. You see, in nature, when a bird pretends to be half dead just to draw the attention of the fox to save his kids. These emotions come through the evolution, through the behaviors in the nature. But you can understand the list of emotions, and you can try to do tests. What will make that zinc GANs made of several layers, if you point to it, the emotion of the cheerfulness, or such aesthetics when the hair gets standing up on your arm, like when you listen to a nice concert, or you see such beautiful fireworks amongst hundreds of people. Or what's the reaction of the GANs when you are just in the emotion of fear? Or if you feel hate, or if you feel boredom. And you can learn, you can control the position of those GANs just by your emotion. That's just the first step in training. The purpose is to be amongst those few who will be able to manipulate plasma without motors, without computers, without wires. Of course, you can do so many power units to power your laptop, but what you do with your laptop when you have to leave the planet?
Or an electromagnetic pulse wipes out your computer.
Yes, a stronger solar eruption and many electronics will be ruined, and there will be no Wi-Fi networks working. What you do then? If the knowledge in your computer and not in your soul, so how you pick up for the right page to read it?
Well, that's when you have to depend on the most powerful transceiver around, the one between your ears.
And still you have the problem with the speed. In a spaceship, you cannot use normal electronics because they are limited in speed.
No, I was talking about the transceiver called your brain.
Yes. Brain is just an interface.
Yep.
It's just the hardware, a piece of hardware. Take an example of computer. Take away, erase all the software, what you make with 2 kilograms of metal? Nothing. You need an operating system. You need a BIOS. Basic input-output operating system is the BIOS, just to start it. You need an operating system. You need softwares. You need interfaces. You need a monitor. You need a mouse or keyboard. You need speakers. Brain is just the interface to the mind.
You mean your third eye?
And the mind itself doesn't do anything else, but it computes, it makes computations, it compares what's similar, what's dissimilar, and which is different, which is identical, and that's all. And all the purpose of mind is just estimation of effort in order to realize emotion. But from the soul to the body, it goes the command through the emotion. And first is your intention, which comes from your soul. Then it's your emotion. Then it's your body, makes the motion, and the mind is the last, because the mind perceives what you already did and stores the information and uses for creating programs for other similar cases in the future. So reasoning is inferior to emotion, interestingly. Actually, looking, perceiving gives you faster and better results than thinking in many cases.
Yeah, he meant your intuition. He meant your third eye, your receiver in your brain.
Yes, you have to know your own body, what is made of.
Can I just say one thing? Hello, Fiona. It's the first time she spoke since the start of the group.
I've been listening quietly here.
Yeah. Given us a lot to think about, Sandor.
Yeah, Oliver, I was just thinking that there was a big silence there, wasn't there? You know, it's like everybody's going, whoa, man.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's like...
Here, it's going to take us about a week. But here, you know, you only meet one class a week, and that's great, because it's going to take us till next week for all the knowledge to absorb. You know?
Yeah, there you are.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
I just thank you, Sandor, for coming in tonight. And
thank you for sending the invitation to the group.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. It was brilliant. You know, to say.
Yeah, think about what Mr. Cash is teaching us. Humanity would have need for centuries to do all the applications.
Yeah.
And to work out so many things of it. But the question is, do we have those centuries still left in the solar system? That's the question. How much do we have?
That's a scary thing, isn't it? Do you know, I actually wake up in the morning and I feel, oh man, I need to get to class now, because there's like a deadline, you know. And,
well, without that urgency, man would be complacent and just lapse and not do anything. So,
Keith, I wonder, has there been a deadline since the beginning of time? You know, was the first man feel there was a deadline? The world was going to end tomorrow if he didn't. You know, has it been like a long running thing since the start of time? Yeah.
So whatever has a beginning has an end. So the solar system. Now, when it will come, we don't know. What about in 300 years? What about if in 30 years? What about if in 3 years? What you would do if you would know that? Besides of taking as much whiskey as you can buy. Think like a samurai.
That's right. Yeah.
well, if you live like you only have today, you're not far off, because all we have is now, even though we exist in every time and space throughout the multiverses, or the unicos or megaverse, whatever term you want to use. We exist in all places at all times.
Yeah, you know, I believe, and this is my personal opinion, I believe that the soul is immortal. That's my belief. But how many millions or billions of years it would take to create another body like this one? If you leave it just for the natural processes and you don't use the knowledge.
Well, I'm going to agree the soul is immortal, and it all depends on your perspective. You could create a new body if you give up the attachment to this one. I've seen it done. I've seen people grow new limbs.
That's great. So how to grow a body on Saturn or on Jupiter or on Andromeda?
don't you think all we're learning is really about remembering that we can do all of it anyway, and that.
Yeah.
Well, the beautiful thing is we don't have to figure it out by ourselves. Our cosmic family already has that knowledge, and it's already in there.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely, there will be pioneers.
And
We'll help the others.
it's our intention and belief.
Well, I mean, we have our cosmic family around us all the time. They're just in a dimension that is just beyond our perception. And they're here already. And they're already like, come on, you can. They're waiting for us to get peace in our minds. And once you have peace in your mind, you can communicate with them. And it's no different than this conversation right here. In fact, it's a lot faster because you skip all the technology and just go soul to soul.
Yeah, learn the language of the soul, which is not by words, not by fancy styles. It's just directly communicating the intention. You just know what you have to do, and that's all. Or what you need, and what you give, and what you get.
Yeah.
Look like newborn are communicating. You see the newborn babies 1 year to the other, and you see by their face that they know each other. Who is stronger, who is weaker. I had my grandson here when he was 6 months age, and I was feeling his not understanding why these adult people cannot understand his communication when he tells it clearly. And I understood what he wanted. Let's go together to the door, let's look what's there up, let's go into the other room. We understood each other well without words, but the problem is every newborn has to learn later to vibrate his vocal cords and to create sounds, create words to make him understood by the adults. Actually, we could learn a lot from the newborn.
And if not the newborns, look at our animals that are around us. You can talk to them just as easily.
Yeah.
And in fact, I listen to some people telling me what their dog is saying, and I'm listening to the dog say exactly what the person is translating to me. It's like, yeah, if you just learn to listen, the animals will teach you.
That's good. The problem is with those who now are captivated by technology in communication, not now, but 15 years ago, I have seen such young people who are not able to talk each other when they met each other because they used only to text. So they sat at the same table, drinking a juice, and they were texting each other instead of talking. More technology reduces, makes people more lazy. More convenience.
Before you know it, they're going to do everything over the internet, and forget about the personal contact and the boom shika wow wow, and then there'll be a whole different issue to deal with.
Absolutely.
Going back to basics is some of the best things in life. Getting out in nature, you can learn a lot. Yeah.
But let me tell about the advantage of this internet communication when we chat by texting each other. Does not matter on Skype, on Zoom, or whatever. You see, often it happens that people observe that they want to raise a question, they start typing it, and he just have to hit the enter, and 2-3 people all immediately already replied to his question, which was untold, but which was formulated in his intention. But very often people don't realize that. But some observe that. And they will start thinking how that is possible.
Well, the only difference between the possible and impossible is the impossible takes a little longer to pull off. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Sandor. It's been great having you tonight.
You're welcome.
Friend. You always have such great advice.
Don't forget, in the word of the universal people, there will be no secrets, no thought can be hidden.
Everybody's naked.
It's happening now, isn't it? Really, it's as we move towards that singularity, there's more and more synchronicity. I feel that synchronicity is a language of the heart. It's where most of our communications are what you would call telepathic anyway, in that sense, and or most of our communications. I believe we're multidimensional beings, and therefore we're only accessing a very small frequency of that type of communication. If you look at dolphins, they don't move around in a linear fashion the way they experience what's around them. They experience everything around them simultaneously all at once. It's not linear where you touch one object and then the next and the next and then the next in that linear fashion. They're experiencing the whole environment around them simultaneously all at once through being able to receive multiple forms of information simultaneously. So they're not experiencing one particular thing and then another. They experience it all at once, and I believe that's what we do. It's just because we're so used to using it, our process of communicating and sensing linearly, because that's the way we've been educated to perceive. We don't take in, we don't accept, or we don't necessarily receive the other information receiving, because we've sort of cut it off because we're not opening up to that. And that's how my experience is of that, of what you're saying, Sandor. It makes sense in what you're saying, a lot of those things. And the thing about the sun as well, about the solar radiation, I believe that the sun itself is a form of singularity. If you look at the sun, it's in one part of it's got a filter, because when you see a prism, you see a white light coming down, and then you see the prism, the color. Well, all the spectrum is connected to for me, how I perceive that, the spectrum is connected to the polarity or to that spectrum. But before the prism, you see the white light, and the white light is the singularity. So it's as if the sun has a filter, and when the white light comes in, certain energies are allowed or come through the sun, which create the filter, which provide us with the life that we live and all the things in our solar system. Many other solar systems are probably completely different, with even greater spectrums, even or less spectrums, and therefore being able to sense even more or less things. Yeah, that's a sort of perception I've had of that. Well, a shark.
How all these species are moving in the same time.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
They're all connected.
Exactly.
And in fact, we're more related to dolphins than most people realize.
Yeah, well, I think we are. I think we're. I feel dolphins and humans are possibly the same species. One went on land and one in the sea. There's even, there's a lot of evidence to say that we've got like mermaids and mermen and things like that. I don't know what anybody else has looked into that, but I've done a bit of research into that, and there's some quite interesting information coming up in relationship to that. So I don't know if anyone else has found anything out like that.
Well, yes. Dolphins have our durameter is something to do with our perception, isn't it? And dolphins have the vastest durameter of any animal for their perception.
Yes, I believe the dolphins have the way they perceive things isn't the way we do. They perceive it's like, for instance, if you imagine a dolphin swimming through a cave, when it's putting out like its sonar, when it receives information back, it's receiving all the information of everything around it simultaneously. When we're walking around a room, if we touch an object and then we touch another object and then another object, then we build up a picture which is more compartmentalized. It's like fractionalized, and then when we've walked around the whole room, we can then put a picture together, whereas a dolphin would experience the whole room simultaneously all at once.
You could do the same thing.
Yeah, we all do that, don't we? I think we do. Yeah, I think we are. We're multidimensional beings. It's just a lot of information. We don't tap into that because maybe we feel like we haven't got. I mean, all these. You got the five senses, you know, and then the sixth sense. Well, I feel that the, you know, five senses are the fractal parts of the sixth sense, which is a hologram of all that is, or all potential senses, which are unlimited in that sense.
Well, you have more than six.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So when we say the five, for me, six represents everything. It's the all that is. It's all senses, all awareness, everything. How can you define how many senses you have? I don't think that's possible. I mean, everyone senses things different, don't they? If everyone's got a different experience in life and taps into different areas of life, different people are going to have senses in different ways. So there's unlimited amount of ways of sensing things. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that or ideas on that.
Oh, but I was actually going to go back to what you were discussing about communication, because I've studied communication and hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming.
Yeah.
And which is basically a study of communication. And 80% of human communication is nonverbal. It's
exactly.
Body language.
Yeah, exactly.
Only 5% of the communication that you have is the actual words.
Exactly.
50% is...
And here we don't refer to meta-communication, to mimicry and gesticulation.
Yeah, I mean, I did some experiments years ago on with using hypnosis, which is put a person into an altered state of consciousness, and especially somebody who's a somnambulist. So I put him in an altered state of consciousness, and I got him to project his consciousness into another room where I had some people writing numbers on a piece of paper, and he was picking them up. He was doing it, you know, and I know, and I don't like that. Because once you move the person's conscious mind aside, which has all the parameters and limitations of what they can and can't do because of the program they've received, and start putting forward and giving them a wider bandwidth of what they can do, they can do it. The only reason that they think they can't do it is because they've been programmed to think they can't do it. And that's all of us, you know. We're awesome beings, you know. I mean, I think we have so many capabilities that are there, you know, waiting to be expanded upon. And this, you know, to me, this conversation is tantamount to that idea. You know, some of the things that that's been discussed. Well, I'm late, and it'd be nice if I'd come in a bit early, but I had things to do. But you know, from what I've been hearing, it sounds awesome. Sounds brilliant. I mean, you must have had, Keith, you've had some experience of hypnosis.
Oh yeah, I'm a certified master hypnotist and master NLP practitioner.
So
I've taken the time. In fact, initially I learned hypnosis. It was to pick up girls, but then I found I actually could help myself and help others, and specifically I help people with PTSD. You know, overcome and empower them to have more tools to cope with the tragedy that's occurred in their lives, and people with panic disorders and anxiety attacks. In fact, I'm a certified anodymic hypnotist, which is pain control hypnosis.
Yes.
Which was the first certification in hypnosis that I got. So hypnosis, oh, there we go. Now I'm back on track where I was heading. The conscious mind, from, you know, the different studies that have done, your conscious mind can handle 2 plus, well, they say 4 plus or minus 2 thoughts at a time, or pieces of information or bits of information. And I've found the average person, you're doing good if they handle 1, because most people are in a hypnotic trance most of the time, just going in, day out in their routine lives. And it's fantastic to find a group that's actually active thinkers and, you know, question the routine. So we're already in a group that's more advanced than the average person. And the people that have the most experience with working with the emotional and the energetic, plasmatic are your energy healers, your shamans, your witches, psychics, those people are already experienced with that information. So they're some of the ones that can be trained the fastest on how to use the emotions and work with the soul, because they already have been. And that might be a little controversial, me saying that, but it's just my perception of it.
Yeah, I think for instance, hypnosis is an amazing subject. When I left school, I couldn't even read or write. I had a lot of learning difficulties and all that type of stuff, and a lot of attitudes as well. So a lot of my life, like yourself, really, I started studying hypnosis and psychotherapy, and really the reason for that is for me to realise what was going on with me, and through that, it certainly took me a long way on my path forward, getting out of my own insecurities. And then, well, I was very interested in the parapsychology side. I'm very much interested in what you can do that was like really weird out the box, because from the education I had all these people defining what was this, that, and the other, and for some reason, I never really felt much interest in what they were saying. And then when I started looking into